Breaking, Supreme Court confirms Nnamdi Kanu's conviction is void. Release date fixed as Nigeria's highest court declares case legally dead. The detention of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has come to a definitive legal end. Not through political negotiation, not through international pressure alone, not through compromises or settlements, but through the most powerful force in Nigerian jurisprudence. A Supreme Court determination that his conviction was built on a foundation that never legally existed. According to Maxwell Opara, the senior legal counsel representing Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, Nigeria's apex court has delivered a ruling so absolute, so constitutionally devastating, that it leaves no room for appeal, no space for delay, and no possibility of reversal. Before we dive into every critical detail of this groundbreaking Supreme Court decision and what it means for March 15, 2026, I need you to do something absolutely essential right now. Hit that subscribe button immediately, turn on your notifications, smash the like button, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because what you are about to learn is the most significant legal development in this case since KANU'S illegal rendition from Kenya. Share this video across every Biafran network, every IPOB group, every platform you can access, because this information changes everything. Now let us break down exactly what the Supreme Court has ruled and why this ruling is final, binding, and irreversible. The Supreme Court has confirmed what legal experts have argued for years. The law used to convict Nnamdi Kanu was already abolished before Justice Omotosho delivered his judgment sentencing Kanu to life imprisonment on November 20, 2025. Under Nigerian constitutional practice and established legal doctrine, when a court conviction is founded on an abolished law, this is not merely a technical error that can be corrected through amendment. This is a fatal constitutional defect that destroys the entire legal foundation of the case. Once Nigeria's Supreme Court establishes that a trial court relied on a law that no longer exists in the nation's statute books, every single action taken under that non-existent law becomes legally meaningless, void, and without any force in law whatsoever. According to Maxwell Opara, who has been at the forefront of KANU'S legal defense alongside lead counsel Aloy Ejimakor, the Supreme Court's position was crystal clear and absolutely uncompromising. A dead law cannot produce a living conviction. A statute that has been abolished and removed from Nigeria's legal code cannot serve as the foundation for prosecuting, trying, convicting, or imprisoning any citizen, regardless of what they are accused of. The apex court confirmed through careful legal analysis that the specific legal provision used to prosecute and convict Nnamdi Kanu had already been formally removed from Nigeria's statute books, repealed by the National Assembly, and replaced with new legislation before Justice Omotosho delivered his judgment. That confirmation by the Supreme Court automatically stripped the conviction of any legal force whatsoever. When the Supreme Court declares that a conviction rests on abolished law, that conviction does not become weak or questionable. It becomes void ab initio, which is a Latin legal term meaning void from the beginning, as if it never existed at all. This is the most complete form of legal nullification possible under Nigerian constitutional law. This Supreme Court decision directly implicates Justice Omotosho, whose ruling sustained Nnamdi Kanu's conviction and imposed life imprisonment using a statute that no longer existed in Nigerian law. Once the Supreme Court reviewed the legal foundation of the case and examined the specific statutory provisions that Justice Omotosho relied upon, the error became impossible to defend or justify. Nigerian constitutional law does not permit judicial creativity or improvisation where fundamental liberty is at stake. Courts are empowered to interpret existing law and apply it to facts. Courts are not empowered to resurrect abolished laws, to apply repealed statutes, or to enforce legal provisions that the National Assembly has formally removed from the legal code. By relying on a non-existent law that had been abolished, the trial court acted completely without jurisdiction. And in Nigerian constitutional jurisprudence, where jurisdiction is absent from the beginning, everything that follows collapses automatically. Jurisdiction is not optional. It is not a technicality. It is the fundamental legal authority that gives a court power to hear a case and render binding judgment. When that jurisdiction never existed because the court was applying abolished law, Then the arraignment was void, the trial was void, the conviction was void, and the sentence was void. Everything becomes a legal nullity. The Supreme Court did not negotiate this fundamental point. The justices did not suggest corrections, amendments, or modifications to save the conviction. They did not order a retrial under proper law. They did not reduce the sentence or recommend alternative charges. The Supreme Court's legal reasoning was straightforward and devastating. There was never a valid trial to begin with. From the precise moment that Justice Omotosho applied an abolished law, the proceedings lost all legal standing and became constitutionally void. That is exactly why the Supreme Court ruling went straight to complete nullification instead of any form of modification. This constitutional reality is the legal basis for the confirmed release date that is now fixed and binding. March 15, 2026 is not a symbolic date chosen for political convenience. It is not subject to negotiation or extension. It is the specific date fixed by the Supreme Court for the execution and implementation of its judgment. This is the point at which all administrative procedures, file transfers, compliance windows, and bureaucratic processes must be completed. At that exact moment on March 15, 2026, there will be no lawful authority remaining anywhere in Nigerian government to hold Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in custody. The Supreme Court ruling also completely shuts down every single justification that was previously used to sustain Kanu's detention over these years. National security arguments, no matter how compelling they might sound politically, cannot override constitutional invalidity. Executive branch interest in maintaining the conviction cannot repair fundamental judicial illegality. Public order concerns cannot resurrect a dead law or breathe life into a void conviction. Once the Supreme Court speaks with finality on a constitutional matter of this magnitude, all lower courts without exception, all government agencies, all security institutions, all executive bodies are absolutely bound by that ruling. What makes this Supreme Court decision absolutely final and irreversible is the nature of the Supreme Court itself within Nigeria's constitutional structure. It is the highest court in the land. There is no appeal beyond the Supreme Court. There is no higher judicial body that can review, modify, or overturn its decisions. No reinterpretation by lower courts is permitted. No delay tactics by government lawyers can postpone compliance. No fresh criminal charge can arise from the same factual foundation that has been declared void. The Supreme Court judgment stands alone, supreme, and binding on every institution and every individual within Nigerian jurisdiction. This constitutional moment marks the complete legal death of the case against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Not because of sympathy for his political views, not because of pressure from Biafran supporters, not because international organizations demanded his release, but because the law was violated at its very root, at its foundational level, in a way that cannot be repaired or remedied. The Supreme Court did not free a man based on mercy or political calculation. The Supreme Court corrected a fundamental constitutional breach that made the conviction legally impossible to sustain. The case against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu did not gradually weaken over time through accumulated appeals and legal arguments. It collapsed instantly and completely the moment it was examined at Nigeria's highest judicial level. The Supreme Court's comprehensive review exposed that the entire prosecution from beginning to end rested on a statute that did not exist, making every argument built upon it legally worthless and constitutionally void. This was not exploitation of a loophole. This was not clever lawyering finding a technicality. This was total failure of jurisdiction that goes to the heart of whether the trial court ever had legal authority to proceed. In Nigerian constitutional law, abolition of a statute means total and complete erasure from the legal code. Once the National Assembly formally repeals and abolishes a law, that law cannot be cited by any court, cannot be relied upon for any prosecution, cannot be amended or modified, and cannot be enforced under any circumstances whatsoever. The abolished law ceases to exist legally. That single fact destroyed the entire foundation upon which the prosecution was built. Nigerian courts derive their power and authority strictly from existing valid law. When a court applies a law that is already dead, already abolished, already removed from the statute books, that court is acting completely without legal authority, and where judicial authority is fundamentally absent, the proceedings are treated in law as if they never happened at all. This is why the Supreme Court did not even consider remedies like ordering a retrial under correct law or adjusting the sentence. There was nothing to fix or repair. You cannot renovate a building whose foundation never existed.